Thank you, Ford.
Thanks, guys.
I just wanted to add one thing.
Sure.
I'm not against the project. I understand that,
Now you know.
that maintenance and stuff is required, and I understand that. I just wanted to bring up the questions that I have.
Totally understand. Those questions and comments are all absolutely valid. It will be an issue of timing, whether we're ready to answer some of them or at some point all of them. So thanks for your patience. Welcome.
Good evening. Matthew Stinson, I'm actually a Lake City resident.
Excellent.
I'm here to lodge a complaint and ask for any actions. I'm here simply to introduce myself. I will be appearing on the ballot this fall in the race for county attorney. As I said, I'm a Lake City resident, lifelong, born and raised, except for a few years out getting my education and working. Returned about 4 years ago. Was working in criminal defense for about 6 years. I've handled cases representing clients accused of murder, explicit conduct at all levels of offense. I've conducted trials for all levels of offense. And I'm really running this fall because I think that I'd be the best candidate to address working together in a collaborative fashion with all of the justice partners who want that happen. I think that there's been some strife between different agencies. And I think that a change in leadership would be the best way to address that. And so I'd just like to announce that I'm here today. Stick around after the meeting to answer any questions you may have. I'll hold you up. I know you have some important business to get to today, but I wanted to introduce myself. And thanks for having me.
And who are you?
Matthew Stinson.
Stinson?
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Stinson. Any other public comment? All right. Well, I'm going to keep it as brief as I can, but having been absent last month, I do want to say a few thank you. First, do we have any changes or additions to the agenda? I know Brian has one.
Yeah, we need to add one donation for fireworks from the Triangle Pub for $100. And then also the William H. Bonney minor plat, just as a note, last minute, the lot needed to get enlarged. So it's probably different than it appears on your packet to accommodate septic square footage. There are copies floating around if you want to look at it, but it just enlarged the lot. So nothing major.
Good. Any other changes or additions by staff or
Yeah, I'd
council?
like to pull item 8.1 from WMB brokers CD approval.
Okay.
Of the consent.
Okay, any other changes? All right, hearing none. Summer gets so busy, but there's just some wonderful things happening in the community, as I'm sure many of you can see. So first of all, the fireworks were phenomenal. Happy 4th of July to everybody. And thank you very much, Brian, for taking over leadership on the fundraising side of that for the Sons of the VFW. And that's just a beautiful demonstration of how this community kind of can outsize itself when we when we try to. It's such a small community to put on a display like that. It was really wonderful. Library programming is another way that happens. I think Speedlings were here to talk about their property at the Heritage Preservation Commission. And just anecdotally, they had done a sort of a figure painting program for little kids. And I think they were planning on 96, which 96 blew my mind. That was their last year number, which they thought was unusual, probably due to COVID. And this year they had 196 or some insane number like that. So those kind of activities, I mean, we're so fortunate to have a beautiful library, but to have this kind of summer program that we do, it's just out of this world. So as you know, Riverboat Days is coming up. There's a group of volunteers spearheading a bigger, better parade, which is wonderful. We major competition in the city of Kellogg, so we have big bar to clear. But I think that it definitely takes excited people to make that happen. So that's coming up on the 29th and 30th. The pool is in full swing. I'm so pleased every time I drive by here. They're still playing the same classic hits that they played at the pool when I was a kid. So some things never change. I think it's because there are no DJs under the age of 50 that's my hypothesis, but it works for me. So thanks to everybody, city staff who made it happen. I know there are plenty of pools who did not get off the ground this year because they couldn't find staff. And that was a big deal for our city to make that happen. So thanks to all the guards and staff that are there. And thanks, of course, to LMC for that recognition. Thank you for covering for me, Craig, in my absence. It's been a crazy month. The reason I couldn't be at the conference was originally that I just didn't have time because we were already gone, as you know, at the early part of June. I came home and got COVID for about 12 days. And then I've been with my mom in the ICU for another 10, where she is not anymore. She's in the PCU. So it's just been a crazy month. I was really disappointed not to be there. Even if I'd gotten there, I wouldn't have been in any mood to party, but I was very well represented by Wabasha. So it was really something I wish I could have somehow changed the timing on. And I think that's all that's real important for me now, but we've got a lot to talk about. What about committee reports? I forget where you guys are at. Utilities did just meet.
We did not, because it was before yesterday,
right,
so
yeah.
we'll meet Monday.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. So nothing
We'll
there
just need to coordinate on what goes on their agenda, Katie.
for utilities, okay. And John, Port Authority.
Port Authority did meet June 21st, and we had a pretty full agenda. I'm sorry to see Mary go, but she made an announcement that Main Streets on a state level received just a bucket of money. And so part of that will become available in grant funding for maybe some projects that we'll have down there in our Main Street area.
So 150,000 for the whole state,
Yeah,
and there's 10 or 11 Main Streets. Organizations.
so the divisions.
So,
yeah,
but one of their focuses is gonna be on second story
renovation.
renovations.
So I think that was really huge. On the agenda was a public hearing for environmental review with respect to the barge terminal. That was actually premature. That will happen at our next meeting in on July 19th. So 5:30 here, July 19th, with respect to that. On the city website, there are some documents, a scoping document and a worksheet that is for review and for comment, and we're in the comment period for that. Applications for our childcare grant program is going very well. We've had some success with that, and there's others that are interested. Our emergency loan program and payment, all those payments are current, and that's going great. And I think that's about it. Right, Caroline?
New staff,
Ben Strand,
What?
Ben Strand.
new staff. to the
Oh,
board.
I'm sorry, yeah, I had that on this right at the top. Ben Strand, Kathy will still be here though. She will be heading up and working with the housing division of our workload. So one day a month for Kathy, 4 days a week.
It's kind of exciting to have Ben, who comes from a Main Street role, as this Main Street money develops, because I'm sure he'll be able to connect the dots right away. So that's exciting. Very good.
He's from Winona, so he's a river rat.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. Planning
I
commission.
think, yeah, we did meet on June 14th, so we had a good discussion on short-term rental areas and what kind of, how to handle and manage those. So we're gonna propose a number of avenues, so development of a kind of an FAQ for these type of businesses that run and kind of what they need to do. Also kind of develop a registration form and a little affidavit of compliance, kind of just, you know, that they meet certain standards, change the definition of what, well, actually add a definition of what short-term rentals are. Change the use chart update to reflect these, and then we'll certainly kind of finalize some of that information this month, I believe, and then look to prepare for a public hearing within the next couple months.
That's good. Anything else, Jeff, from planning?
Nope.
All right, and then Tony. Park, streets, you choose. What's going
We did not have a street. I'm gonna move this a little.
on?
Not have a street commission meeting. We didn't really have a lot for the agenda. I think once we get into this more details of the street project, we'll start focusing on a few things there. Park board, we welcomed MJ Bashan to the park board. And athletic field steering committee, we talked about getting a group of people together, so we had some names that I kind of sent out an invitation for them, see if they're interested, and we're kind of building that group. And we were initially talking about some different projects at Ruger Park, but that's been kind of changed depending on tonight what we do with the athletic field. And then I got 3 employees that I'd like to recognize. Scott Lingo, he's been here with us 5 years with Public Works. He specializes kind of in water and sewer repairs. He had some experience before he came to the city with that, and then he kind of started right when we had a rupture under the #2 city well, and so we tore into that. And and he helps, the city save about $50,000 on that repair versus hiring it out. Austin Little, he's been here 2 years. He's taken a liking to the pool operation and the chemicals and all that good stuff over there, so he kind of stays on task for that. And other than that, he's our shop mechanic. He has some prior military experience with equipment maintenance, so he's taken on that, kind of revitalized our equipment logs and all that stuff there. Matt Wabi, 2 years. He came on the same time as Austin. Of course, Matt specializes in tree removal, being in the tree service for 15, 18 years. And then I think one thing that he's really got into is planting new trees, which they probably didn't get to do in the other one. So he's kind of jumped on board with that, and he makes a good crew leader when needed. So that's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tony. Thanks to those staff. All right, and then we're set. Committee. Oh, yeah. Joe, do you want to
Just
update us?
doing work anniversaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Remind me when I step over that, because
Yeah.
those anniversaries come fast.
I got 4 of them.
All right.
So, first one is Heidi Johnson. She's been with us for 23 years. I think the longest standing employee with the city. She's always been a rock for us. We probably wouldn't be able to operate without her. She keeps things organized, record keeping, knows the job very well, probably too well. Sometimes she likes to tell me what to do. She's the first person you're gonna see when you come to the window. But again, she's very good. She's a great asset to us. Second one is Dan Metcalf. He's been with us for 9 years now. From the start, he was a go-getter, a very proactive officer, and could clearly see he wanted to do more with himself early on. A few years ago, out of necessity, we created the investigator position, and he was the clear-cut guy for the job. He's been involved in some very significant cases. He's assisted on potential homicides with other departments. He's investigated vehicular homicide here, a couple big fraud rings that he's worked with. And many investigations leading to multiple search warrants for 8 years. Does a great job for our department. He is our background investigator, and he also does the backgrounding for any employee hired for the city. He found his perfect setting as a school resource officer. That's a position that has been very difficult over the years. Cops and teachers are kind of mixing oil and water.
Unless you're a teacher before you're a cop. Unless you're a teacher before you're a cop.
But yeah, Rob was a teacher before he was an officer, so they mended together very well and get a lot of good feedback on him out there. And the last one is Hoss Kramer. Hoss has been with us for 5 years now. He came from West Salem PD where he had another 4, so he's got 9 total years of experience. Local kid, so it was nice having him here and kind of knowing the families and things like that. And it's always very helpful within a police department to kind of know some of the people on a better level and stuff like that. He is the new use of force instructor for the PD, which is a very important role. He also is in charge of keeping the department weapons up to date, clean, in good working order. So he's been a nice fit with our department as well.
Very good. Thank you so much. And do you have any others?
Yeah.
I'll just send it over to your quote presentation. We'll take our administrative report.
Yes.
Ms. Caroline.
I just wanted to address a few more people. Tony Johnson, Public Works, stand up, is celebrating 19 years with the city of Wabasha. He started out as a street department worker, then street superintendent, then was promoted to Public Works Director in 2016. Tony signs every email with, if you can't do it right the first time, when will you find time to do it right the second time? That is truly how he approaches his position, tackling every project with pride and dedication. I always appreciate how Tony is willing to share a new idea and keep the best interests of the city in mind when approaching any problem. He's a great team player and a great leader. And then we've got Amy Glomsky has been at the library for 7 years. Her main focus has been children and story time. During the school year, St. Felix preschoolers walk to the library and enjoy story time with Miss Amy. They love the way she expresses herself while reading a story, and during the COVID shutdown, Miss Amy recorded story time from her home. Thank you, Miss Amy, for your years of service. And then Chelsea Fensky has been at the library for 7 years as well. She enjoys working at the circulation desk and helping patrons with computer issues. And during COVID, she helped organize and assemble hundreds of take-home craft kits. And finally, Bev Hall has 16 years with the library. Her leadership has made our little library one of the best in the region. We could just go on, but my favorite thing is that they have Wi-Fi hotspots at the library. So if you're going on a trip, you're worried will I have Wi-Fi, you can borrow a hotspot from the library. So that's just one example of how incredibly creative she is. And the rest of the boring stuff is on my administrator report. And so just feel free to read it. It's online.
Thanks. Thanks for your excellent written reports too. Yes, please,
I'd like to
Craig.
make a motion that we give a round of applause to these employees.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm so. All of her many duties as a new administrator, she took it upon herself to kind of get to know all of her team well by, recognizing how long they've dedicated service and learn about their roles. And so it's been a pleasure for all of us. I can assure you that. Oh, now I am in your administrator report and I can't get out of it. There we go. So thank you. And thanks to the department heads for putting the thought into those recognitions as well. So on our consent agenda, we have new firefighter, Wabasha Fire Department, yippee. We pulled 8.1, which I guess it's because there's a 0. So W&B brokered CD approval, that's not on the consent agenda. We're going to talk about that separately. William H. Bonney minor plat approval, which as Brian mentioned, grew a little bit, and that has circulated, I hope. Alcon gambling permits for St. Felix and Wide Spot Performing Arts and the St. Elizabeth's Community Development Foundation and Coffee Mill. And we have the July warrants, the May 31st special meeting minutes and June 7th city council meeting minutes. The resolution authorizing the execution of the agreement, I forgot what that one is. Oh, for the police department to be the lead financial administrator for Towards Zero Death program. I just have trouble saying that. And the pool department Visa card. With that one item pulled, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move.
I heard Jeff. So we have a first from Brian, second from Jeff. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. All right. And we do not have a public hearing tonight. Under general business, just don't let me forget that W&B item. We'll make that item 10.4. So 10.1 is our downtown street reconstruction project presentation, which, as I've sort of foreshadowed, we're still pretty early in the process, but Katie's going to give us a lot of information along the way. So we'll welcome her to the podium.
We practice ahead of time, her connecting to the TV. So
Thanks for being here, Katie.
let me know if you need help. So apparently June and July is when we employ a lot of new people, I think is what we discovered. Thanks. Yeah, well said.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we're here to give you an update on your 2023 street internal improvement project. At the May 3rd meeting, we authorized the preparation of the feasibility study, so we'll prepare the results and have a discussion with you this evening. As a reminder, the project area entails about 9 blocks of full reconstruction, sewer, water, storm suites for Bridge Avenue from 4th Frank Boulevard to Main Street. Main Street from Bridge Avenue to Pembroke, and then Pembroke from Main to 4th Grant Boulevard. A little bit about the purpose of the feasibility study. We are very early on in the process. The intent of the feasibility study is to look at the improvements that are proposed. Are they necessary? Are they cost effective? And are they feasible? Should big improvements be made as proposed or in connection with some other improvements? The feasibility study should include an estimate of the improvement as recommended. Now, I will say that this is an estimate. Each iteration of the process, we get more information, more detailed information. So we refine those numbers along the way. So at this point, with the information that we have at hand, we provide a new cost estimate. And then the last piece, which I know there's been a lot of discussion about, but it's a reasonable estimate of the total amount to be assessed, and then a description of the methodology used to calculate the individual assessments for the affected parcels. And that must be available at the included hearing. So tonight we will review the proposed total assessment. We have the preliminary review of the project corridor to give some projected ranges of estimates to start that conversation. Here's the overall project schedule. As we sort of talked about, the preparation of the feasibility study back in May. We held an informational open house at the end of May, and that was intended to introduce the project to the property owners, the community, and hear their concerns about issues that they've been having along the corridors, to incorporate that into the feasibility study. We've been working to review that information, review the project corridor and prepare that feasibility study, updating the cost estimates. And so we're reviewing that here with you tonight. We'll take your feedback, your input tonight on what has been prepared to date. We do intend to have our second open house, our second informational meeting mid-July. It's going to be the third week of July, the 18th. We'll finalize that date and send out invites to that meeting soon. Once we have that meeting, we do intend to come back at your August 2nd meeting to have you officially receive the feasibility study and call for the public hearing, call for the information hearing, which will then be at your September meeting. That's where you officially would hear comments from the public about the improvements to be made. And again, it's still going to be on the information that is presented in the feasibility study at the preliminary level. And then we'd ask you to order the plans and specs. And so that starts the ball rolling into more of the final design, getting into the details. I'm going to kind of go through this real briefly, the rest of it. And we'll spend the rest of the fall through December preparing the plans and specs as we move forward with the project. Planning on advertising and bid opening in January to try and get out early in the bidding season. Once we do receive those bids back, that's when we start to really dive into the assessments specifically on specific properties and specific amounts, because we'll have that information available to us at that time. That means we'll prepare an assessment rule for you. And then present that information to the property owners at another meeting before we have the assessment hearing. The purpose of the assessment hearing is to then hear input and comments on the assessments as proposed. And then finally, the hope is that after the assessment hearing, you approve that bid and allow us to get going on the work and construction that we start the spring of 2023. I do want to mention, because I think we mentioned that there's some streetscape enhancements that we talked about with this project. We kind of split the two components in two, so we focus on the street reconstruction project. The base project is part of what we're talking about tonight. I think a few of you are part of our downtown streetscape plan steering committee. They are looking at a number of elements. Work that's being done as part of that plan could be incorporated. Some of those elements could be incorporated with our project. I'm going to present some information tonight that starts to have that conversation. But the intent was to have that plan inform some of the conversations, inform some of the decisions that could be made as part of the street project. This sort of, maybe I've all seen this schedule before, but it kind of shows you how the two sort of put together with the schedules of the two. So we're kind of running them in parallel, and the hope is that on the right hand side there you see the downtown streetscape plan, that those are going to be recommendations. They're not necessarily intended to be part of this project, but they could be if it was something that you chose to do. And that process is well underway. We actually have our next committee meeting next Monday to review the results of the visual survey that was out to the public. That information will then be put into concepts and another open house not until September, and the committee meeting, and then ask you to act on that plan in October. So that's when we're going to be getting into the final design processes. So that's where the two processes will come together. Talking a little bit about the existing project, like I said, it's full reconstruction. There's some utility issues that sort of prompted or have been part of the discussions with this project. Sanitary sewers, well, we'll start talking about that. It's vitrified clay pipe. It's fairly old pipe. It ranges from 8 to 12 inches in diameter. Most of it was installed back in the 1930s. What happens to clay pipe is it can get brittle over time. It starts to crack. It starts to allow root intrusions, and then it can start to actually crumble and break. And once you get to that point, you now have failures within your pipe. You don't want to be fixing those on the flat. It also leads to significant groundwater infiltration, and so all of that water then goes to your wastewater treatment plant and has to be treated there as well, not necessary. So there have been issues that have been identified in this corridor. So what we propose as part of this project within that 9-block corridor is to replace it with new PVC mains and concrete manholes. I think there was some question about sizing. We replace with 8-inch or larger, which is today's modern standard. 6-inch line in the ground. It was put in a long time ago and standard for that. The manholes will be spaced to modern standards as well. That will allow efficient maintenance, televising, jetting of those manholes. And then the other piece that is very important as part of this project is the service lines will be replaced from the main that's replaced out to the right-of-way line. And what I will note is a good portion of this project is in the downtown area where the right-of-way lines that the building is facing. As we get into final design, we will have to have conversations with property owners about how we make those connections best for those buildings. That will be a piece that comes edited. Water main, it's cast iron water main, ranges 6 to 12-inch diameter throughout the project area. All of it was constructed back in 1913, so it's fairly old, very old pipe, and it is served its lifespan. It has been susceptible to water main breaks. We've been quite a few of them over the last 8 years. One of the things that you updated your water supply plan back in 2019. When you do that, you look at the water that you pump into the system from your wells and the water that you're selling is going through a meter on the back end. If there is a difference, that's what we call water loss. It's not uncommon to have water loss. That means that you're pumping more into the system than is moving out on the other side. The issue that came up in your plan was that percentage is 30%. It's a fairly large percentage. I think one of the water mains, the 12-inch main that was replaced a few years back, but we still know that there's issues. And so part of the state had required that you develop a water loss reduction strategy. And part of that was replacing water mains with street reconstruction projects. So this project is going to help you get to the goals of your water supply. So with this project, we are proposing that the water mains are replaced with 8-inch diameter mains, and again, that is today's modern standard. We will install something less than that. Also, new hydrants and valves, and then likewise with the sewer connections, we also replace the power connections from the new main to the right-of-way line. And again, similarly, we need to have some conversations with some property owners. We also know that there are shared connections out there. It's not uncommon in older cities where you have 2 properties being served after the same connection. I've actually had a call from someone who wants to accomplish that. So that would be something that as we do the final design, we will review those. And as long as it is feasible and there aren't significant issues in making separations, we will accomplish that with this project. Street, storm, and sidewalk. The city did enter into a cooperative agreement with Wabasha County for those components of this project. We are recommending the construction of the street, curb and gutter, storm sewer, and sidewalks within the current width. We're not suggesting any changes in the cross section. We'll go through more detail what the cross sections are of each. Because this is a county state aid highway, we are going to be designing it to a 10-ton standard. So that allows for heavier traffic to travel on this road. The other thing that we'll be accomplishing with this project is when we put the sidewalks back, we'll, putting them back to ADA standards. So there will be areas where we're gonna have to adjust some elevations and try to make that work. You have some areas that are 7 or 1% in crosslope, and we have to get those to 2%. So there's going to be some work that we have to do during the design process. Therefore, we may have to use some special treatments in order to make all of that work. But again, that's going to be a final design consideration. We are proposing bump outs with this project on Main Street, and we'll get into that in a little bit. As part of the project, as we go by driveways, typically in a project like this, because we're having construction limits that go back to the right of way, we would be taking out the driveway aprons as part of the project, so we will replace those from the curb line back to the right of way. And then lastly, the base project, and the the base project includes some lighting replacement and some basic streetscaping elements. That was part of discussions that were part of the grant application. We'll have discussions about some other enhancements as well. So Bridge Avenue, this is the proposed improvements. You're not going to see a ton of difference in what's out there today and what I discussed. So we have a 60-foot right of way through this corridor. Current street, curb to curb is 44 feet. That allows for 2 8-foot parking lanes and 2 14-foot drive lanes. And that leaves about 8 foot on each side of the boulevard. Now within this corridor, that boulevard, the treatments within that boulevard vary significantly from just all grass to the areas of the buildings, that's all concrete apron. Main Street, so this is where we start to see those bump ups come into play. Through this corridor, we actually have 2 different street widths. The first block from Bridge Avenue to Walnut is 52 feet in width for pavements. And so we replace as is, that's about a 19-foot boulevard space from the back of curb to the right-of-way line. There's sidewalk there that will be replaced. And then once we get past Walnut, we start to get into the more heavy downtown area. That's where we have a 60-foot width between back of curb to back of curb. And then we have about a 12-foot sidewalk area that exists there. And so within those areas, we will place in right away. Pembroke is similar to Bridge in that it is a 60-foot right of way with a 40-foot pavement surface. We are proposing to bring the bump out treatments through this corridor and replace like for like with for both the pavement and the boulevard treatments. As we were reviewing this project, there were some additional areas of concern that were needing maintenance that we were asked to take a look at to see if it made sense to try and accomplish them with this project. We did that, and we did prepare some cost estimates that were included in the packet. So these include a couple of pedestrian ramps that are not ADA compliant. You'll see when they're on the bottom of the screen, there's actually steps there. And so it's what we prepared cost estimates for was to replace both that area and then an area over by kind of for headramps that currently are not functional for those that need them. The other piece was alley, Alpha Alley, Alley B. You'll see in the picture there, it's in pretty poor condition. And since we will be doing the street work, we looked at essentially just replacing it as part of this project. And then last, both internally and through comments we received at the first open house, there has been some drainage issues along 2nd Street that we were asked to take a look at. And so what we have done is prepared a cost estimate to essentially start or do some additional treatments down 2nd Street from where we're already going to have the street opened up. There, it would not be a full reconstruction. It would just be looking at extending storm sewers and intakes in front of the buildings. As we were going through the feasibility study, there were some things that we noted that we need to be taken into consideration during the final design. I know we're gonna get questions along the way, so streetscape enhancement, I talked a little bit about that. We have some initial feedback and concepts that are coming out of the streetscape plan. We wanted to prepare some cost estimates just to give you a sense of what that might look like, and so you could have that information as you have discussions. We already talked a little bit about the water and sewer connections, the service connections that we're asking. We're gonna have to look at where those connect to the things, and how those are gonna be as part of the final design. We talked a little about ADA compliance already. You'll see that that space is not a very wide space, and so we're gonna have to work to get those slopes right for for ADA compliance. We also know that there's buildings out there that have special or unique features that are either in the right of way or they're on private property just adjacent to the right of way. So we're gonna have to look through those as well. The other piece comes from construction, during construction. There'll be questions about deliveries, access, parking. We will have to close the street down. And so we'll have to talk about where parking is provided. And all of that plays into the phasing of the project and how we can minimize those impacts during construction. So if we're not going to have those answers today, definitely something that we'll work through with the department.
When will you have the phasing figured out?
That will be something that when we get into the final design this fall, we'll work through those considerations. Part of that too is we have to consider the utilities and how you keep sewer, since it's gravity, you have to work backward or work upstream to make sure you can keep flow. Okay, that being said, we have put together some new cost estimates. I think I noted in the memo that we've seen some significant cost increases over the last couple of years due to a variety of industry changes. Since the last cost estimate that we put together 2 years ago, we were seeing a 25 to 30% increase. And so we use that information within these cost estimates. So you are going to see that reflected here. The cost is broken down into different schedules, if you will, or different components, so that as we have other discussions about assessments and additional work, we can see those. The surface improvements is really the base project. It includes sidewalks, the streets, curb and gutter. Sanitary sewer will be the work related to the sanitary sewer and services, same with the water system. Storm sewer would be your storm sewer pipes and intakes. The lighting improvements, now that would include all of the lighting on the corridor. I think when we originally started talking about this project, we had assumed that there would be replacement of the lighting that is that is along this corridor. What we've included in this number is also there's been some discussions about potentially lighting from Main Street, the intersection of Main Street and Bridge down to Beach Park. Again, that's included in this number, but it's something that could be reduced if that was part of the conversation. And then the streetscape improvements. We had assumed some, I think of some trees and some decorative concrete that was part of the original project. This also includes some elements that are coming out of those discussions. And again, that's something just consideration. And then we have those 3 areas that I noted of additional work broken up as well. Like your construction subtotal, you apply to 10% contingency, which is pretty standard. That contingency covers unforeseen circumstances. It covers bidding differences, those types of things. And then we have project development costs, so engineering and legal at 25% as well. So that gets us to the 8.1 project cost. So as part of this project, there is a combination of funding that the city applied for and did receive, was successful at getting $1.25 million through NDOT's local road improvement program, which is a great addition to the funding for this project. There was also $450,000 that is part of the county's cooperative agreement that will be applied to this project. And then the rest would be through financing, through the PFA, and then other debt that would be supported through a combination of user rates from the utility fund and also tax levies and assessments. So we'll get into assessments a little bit. Assessments for this project will be governed by the city's local improvement policy. As you look through that, this would be considered a Class D improvement. For Class C improvements, there are street, water, and sewer improvements that are assessed to the benefiting properties on a per unit basis. But there's 3 components to the assessments as part of the Class D improvements. It says that our street and storm is based on 20% of the accessible cost. When I say accessible cost, it's not total of the surface improvement, because the policy also says that if it is a collector or arterial road, which this is, we should assess based on the value of a local improvement. So if you see my numbers, you're going to see that connection. And then for water and sewer, those will be based on a rate that is set by the city council. So I'm going to go through each one of those. For the street assessments, there is something that is used that's called an equivalent residential unit. So a single family residential lot is considered 1 unit. For multifamily and non-residential properties, they are adjusted based on a formula. For most of the properties on this project, they would be considered, if they're not residential, they would be considered a commercial property, which is based on the linear foot of frontage, but it's an increment. So if it's under 120 feet, it is 1 unit. It's going to include the next of feet. So, sorry. Is that better? So we have been through the project order. We have reviewed the properties. All properties are included when we talk about the number of units on the project order. We have determined that we're estimating that there's 7 units that would be for street assessments. And so then we look at the estimated assessment at this point. We would take that adjusted assessable amount, which was about 1.7 million, take 20% of that, which is about 332,000. And we divide that by 75, that takes us to about 4,450 per year. So that would make an individual assessment range for this project moving the properties of about 556 to 5,000. With some of those units, so on that lower end, we talk about properties that are condominium units. So it's one building that was divided. Each of those units has its own property identification through the county. Historically, what we've done with those is we've taken that, we looked at the assessment for that building and divided it by the number of units because we can assess to each unit. So some of those dollar amounts, that's why they're as low. I would say the majority of the properties on the corridor are 1 unit, given that the majority of us, they're either single family or they're less than 120 feet. We do have a couple more commercial properties that are going to be fit into that category, more than 1 unit. And so that's when we look at those properties that are closer to 5,000. Looking at this amount compared to what you have assessed in the past for this project, I want you to keep in mind this is for a full construction project. The last 2 or 3 projects that you've done have been for an overlay type projects, and so those assessment rates reflect the difference in cost. So per wasn't done, sidewalks wasn't necessarily, it's just a million surface, so not as much infrastructure that's going to be.
So what about businesses like the Anderson House Hotel, which has 2 sides in the project, and the same thing with the bank, they have 2 sides?
So your policy allows you to essentially assess for 1 side. It also looks at past projects. So if you have a past project that they have been assessed for improvements, it's, you know, looking at it streets or sewer, it doesn't. It says that you should assess for them. That's an assessment instead of the last 15 years. So within that 75 units, we're using the calculation, which is some properties that actually get zeroed out, right? Because they have multiple sides or they have been previously assessed. But we do look at streets separate from sewer. So, for example, if a property was assessed for streets in the past, we are still going to look at them for sewer and water because they haven't, that improvement wasn't done as a past project. Right, for the utility assessments, it does be assessed on a per unit basis as a the city council. Assessment would be based on connection to the utility price. So for this, we look at those connections being made to the pipe that's being replaced, and we count about 66 units. Now, some of this is going to have to come in with the final design because it's all underground to confirm curb stop locations and where those connections are made in the survey process. But when we look at what that means for preliminary assessments, what we've done is we've taken the sewer and water costs from our cost estimate. The reason you're going to see a little bit larger number here than what I had on the other table is because this has been adjusted for both the contingency and the portion of the project development cost. So this is, so you take that number, that was the sewer and water, and you add the 10% contingency and the 25% project development cost. That's how that's numbers. For this initial conversation, we used a 20% cost, and that gets us to what you see here. Divide those numbers by 66, and for sewer, you get 2,689 per ERU for connection, and for water, 2,554 per connection. And again, we apply that to individual units, and again, taking into consideration of CICs, we end up getting ranges from 655 to 540. Comparing this to past work, we really don't, most of the projects we've done in the past have been mostly street surface work. One of the projects we did have some sewer lining that was done with the surfaces, and that was about a $1,800 assessment, and it was 100% of that project cost. So these are full construction from the beginning to the right. So where we get for total assessment then for these properties, we have a street storm. Again, we've used the lower end of this range because what that actually does is estimating assessment, because we're going to make sure we're trying to be conservative here. So that assessment amount could come down if you find that actually more units. So you take that total and you divide it by a little bit lower actual assessment. So that table summarizes those assessment ranges. And so what we end up getting is individual assessments of about $1,200 to $11,000 for this project. That being said, that single ERU, which is including the properties on this project corridor, is $1,652. This amount is total, the assessment rate for total construction, that actually is comparable to what we're seeing in other communities that assessments for full construction. We also went back and looked at your 2015 project, and that's been 10 years ago at this point, but when we adjust those that number for inflation, we're actually about in this range. So we're calculating out preliminarily for our assessment.
And the 2013 one you just referenced, was that reconstruction or was it was, yeah.
This is fairly easy to read. Can we get a copy of this presentation?
Yeah, yes.
Will this be on the website? Will this be on your website?
You can put it on the
Project.
website, so essentially what we'll do is we'll take your feedback. You can put this on the website, but this is also essentially a presentation to the public.
I'm talking about the whole link website.
The project site, yeah.
So conclusion and recommendation, again, we're just reviewing it with you, seeking, we're not asking you to take any action, we're asking for feedback or comments if you have at this point. But at this point, it doesn't think the improvements are necessary, cost effective and feasible. It's all contingent on your discussion and findings with respect to the financing of the project. as I know, we are gonna have, our second project information meeting, in July. Present the feasibility study to you at your August 2nd meeting, or you'll take the action of receiving it at that point. And then we'll also call for the improvement hearing, which would then be on September 16th. So that I will stand for any questions.
I'll get the first question. We have water here, assessment. It's my understanding that a few buildings downtown, the water actually comes out of, an alleyway. Now, those assessments are figured out, those particular units will not be assessed for water if they're already coming from the back, right?
Right, we'll have to, that's part of what we'll have to explore through the final design process is confirming, quite frankly, right now at this point, the information that we have available to prepare this report can't confirm those, all of those connections, the survey information, our trucks and our guys out there, that will bring that information and confirm all of that before we go into the final assessment.
Well, the reason I asked is some of those were put in big Joe Flower Alley within the new condominium. Some of the units there on Main Street had the water.
So that's what we'll have to do.
Whether it comes back. So, and then let's get back to condominiums. You know, the ones that don't hook up, 8 of them or 7 of them. You had spoken up there about per parcel. Can you say something about condominiums? Can you repeat that again? How that
So
parcel?
there are 3 condominium CIC units. So it was a single address, a single building at one point. They renovated those buildings and then they created what's called a CIC. So each unit is its own tax parcel now. And so in that building, we're calling that building one unit and then dividing the assessment value of that one unit between the number of units in the building.
Right. Okay. I just want to clarify that.
And they'll be assessed based on the classification. Residential versus commercial. Let's say you had a building, like Bill's that was commercial on the first level and residential above. So the first level would be assessed at the commercial rate.
Quite frankly, when you look at these buildings, they are mixed use and your policy doesn't
Address it.
It doesn't
address
address it
other
clearly.
things. But at the end of the day, if you were to look at it as a residential building, it's one unit. If you look at it as a commercial building, because it's less than 100 feet, it's one unit.
Got it.
And my other question is, Brenda's concern, she brought up is, she was assessed on a parcel where her second street was known overlay. Now she will not be charged for that known overlay site, but she will not be charged, for Bridge Avenue.
If there was a previous project, so say they abut the current project, and there was a previous project of a side street, and they were assessed for that side street for, say, street improvements, they would not be assessed based on the policy.
For the street.
For the street, yeah,
The street portion.
Utilities.
For utilities.
we would confirm whether the utilities are connected. and they-
West side.
That answers that question. Why don't somebody else go? No.
Well, I can follow up on some of the ones that Bill, I think are answered. One was what class is, it's a class D project. Let's see, the tax exempt piece is that, I can't remember if that's outlined in our policy. It is.
It is, and so when you look at the number of units that we figured.
Right.
It's those parcels are included, but I can tell you that that has a number of parcels. You could send them, but you're not gonna get paid though.
Right, well, we tried that with the county, so.
Yeah.
They didn't like it. So then the parameters of district was, so it's a question, so you had said something about an arterial, can you just say a little bit more about this, if it's a
It's a collector. or
Collector,
arterial
yeah.
road, so it's wider,
Mhm.
so that means the cost is larger, so what we do is we adjust what we're making the accessible cost.
Right.
To more of a local level.
right, to speak to that benefit that I think both parties mentioned, so that's accommodated in the policy. Let's see, I think Dean asked that one.
While you're looking. at
Yeah, thank you, Dean.
So now we're gonna do some sewer repair on Second Street. I'm assuming that's Second Street, corner of Second Street and Pembroke.
Correct.
I know a whole longer name. Now, will those, 3 property owners or whatever be assessed with the storm?
Your assessment does not address that piece.
The policy doesn't.
Right.
We're doing them because it's a beneficial
Right, but-
timing,
It's
but,
a great.
Yeah.
yeah.
So streets and storms are one thing. But there's nothing that's storm.
There was a question about whether or not some of these like extra pieces are going to be assessed to the property owners. Can you speak to, again, that assessment calculation and what aspects of the project are not included in that?
I can, so when we look at the schedule of different components of the project, we're looking at the surface improvements, we're looking at the sanitary sewer improvements, the water and the storm sewer. Those components are included in our calculations. The things that are not are any of the lighting, so we had talked about first for the base project, there was some lighting replacement, and then there's also some for additional lighting. Regardless of the base project or any additional lighting, that is not included with the project with any streetscaping elements, whether it's with the base project or the enhanced streetscape is not included, and then those 3 additional pieces.
Another question I have is, on Walnut Avenue where the 3 light poles are in the sidewalk, I didn't see those being addressed at all. So those are going to stay as is.
They are not part of the project.
Project scope.
All right.
No,
Dean just wants to wave a magic wand and make them go away,
We
right?
have a sidewalk that's not usable. So why do we have a sidewalk?
So what we can do as part of the streetscape plan, we're looking at those areas. And so through those concepts or comments that we get through that plan, we can take a look at that. And again, this is something we're kind of doing too.
Well, for replacing lights on the main project area, are we not replacing the old lights on Oak Street too?
Here,
That goes on Walnut Avenue, Allegheny Avenue.
correct.
Right, so we're like 2 sets of different lights. Or which lights would need to be replaced at. Because you can't get bulbs or anything, right?
Well, what's going to do with Big Joe Alley should match, we're gonna be close to downtown.
Yeah,
But you're asking about the 2 under the bridge?
the 2 or 3 on the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple little oddball things that we haven't really got into yet, that's gonna be small beans, but.
That was one of the concerns I brought up at the beginning of it. So it's not being addressed. So,
We have it, I think it's in the streetscape.
It is,
Are you on
yeah,
it? Or not?
yeah,
Yeah.
I am. But I didn't see it addressed here, so.
right, because it's not in the,
Yeah.
not within the parameters of the project. Oh, so what you had mentioned, there would be properties with unique features. I assume you mean things like ramps and things that are already in place. How soon should those property owners be reaching out to think about that?
So, we're meeting them and we're having our informational
Yep.
meetings, but once we get into the fall and get into design, they can either reach out to us, we'll actively reach out to
Okay.
them.
So you'll seek them out.
We're collecting survey information right now, survey in the terms of taking shots on the ground. So when we get all of that in, we'll we identify those property owners.
So another question I have is, it was brought up that Broken Paddle had a break last year. They had to pay for it, which I'm okay with. And, but since we're replacing the sewer down anyway, we're gonna have to, we can't connect to that new patch, I mean.
As far as, you don't know about this one, but that was a service leak. So that was their responsibility, as it would be anybody else in town.
Right.
It's not the main, so
Okay,
they're still gonna get probably,
yeah, okay,
the rest of the pipe replaced, but they'll have a new water shut off already, so it's kind of hard.
okay, very good, thank you.
That was all of them that seems like they can be addressed at this time.
Well, I just want to address a couple of.
Yeah, I meant.
So the reason I went around the city, I just want to kill a couple of them, was that, the parcels assessment was gonna be anywhere from 30,000 to 100,000 to 100%. And I just want to make sure that that is not correct, for the public listening and so forth, because that is not correct.
You can't take the total cost and divide it by the number of properties and get your assessment, yeah. Because there's a lot of withdrawals before that happens.
Very often,
Right.
and we've had the paper and whatever. smoke signals or whatever. And it certainly is a Class B project. And there's no doubt about that in my mind. So that answers Bill's question there. I probably have more questions on Bill along.
Anything else from?
Yeah, one of them, when you showed the parcel payment, you had anywhere from, say, $600 to $9,000 or something like that. You could make, and hold of that more number.
So the one where we're in. Oh,
right there you have 1,200.
Yep. So those condominium units, those buildings that have, most of them are 5, 6, or 7 units.
Within one.
Those are the examples of those lower.
And an example of that higher amount would be
So the higher amount, because it is.
First State Bank. Maybe.
Probably, I mean, they're longer.
There's a
It's a
couple
lot.
properties.
They're more than 120 feet.
Yeah, so then they get a multiple, it might be 1.25, it might be 1.5.
And let's also talk
There's 3 or 4
about,
properties that fit there.
let's also talk about the National Eco Center. It's my understanding that they will be assessed. Will they be assessed or are they city owned?
They're not city owned, they're Eagle Center owned,
Right, that's what I thought.
and they're individual buildings with individual tax IDs.
And then when we look at properties that are, there are one or two other properties that are owned by the city, we do include those in our count. What we do with those, I mean, you're basically paying yourself. So you're funding that portion of.
So for instance, popcorn.
Correct, yeah, that's.
Would be one.
So you're helping, you're contributing, the city's contributing towards their property that they own, just paying for it through.
Financing.
The financing,
The other thing I would encourage people to do is go to the city's website and sign up for the Volk project page, construction page, and you'll get emails and whatever else, and contact information is there for
Katie.
and our other engineers, so.
But if you have any other.
Yeah, I did contact you. I was one of the.
Yeah, so I encourage that if anyone else is bringing up those types of questions, please feel free to call.
And also council is here too. I mean, I've gotten a lot of stock and so forth, but I don't know if any of you guys have been getting a lot of people stopping. I think just because my daughter's open.
You're right there.
I wouldn't walk right there. So, but contact your council people. They know the answers. They don't know them all, but they have multiple. We're familiar with this stuff. First. So,
I know as an example, what they did,
yeah.
quite a lot of conversation with that neighborhood, and kind of reiteration of the public uses and stuff, so, yeah. And this is our 3rd project or 4th project with the public improvement policy.
Fourth.
That's at least third.
Yeah,
So I went back on Beacon this weekend to 2014, 2015, looked at Tall Street. And some of those people were paying $400 per year for 10 years, so about $4,000 assessment. I looked at my mom's property, I looked at your property, John, and those were around $400 per year. So that's $4,000 just for a street, no overlay. So looking at these numbers, I'm very encouraged.
You bring up a good point about when we do the assessment and you approve the assessments, they do have the option, every property owner does have the option of paying it up front. If they pay within 30 days, there's no fee to apply to it. So what I can tell you based on my experience with most property owners, better go to the tax rolls. And then you pay, there's over a 10-year period, so amortizes over a 10-year and make payment with the tax.
And I will say in that 2013 project on 12th Street, Pierce, whatever it was, we had a number of people that just paid them. And if you have that opportunity, that's great. If you don't, take the 10 years. We also have, if you're disabled for 62 or older, whatever you get it for, and leave that in your house. You know, I don't recommend people do that, but it's up to them. So, but they need to know that option's out there. So, and one other thing, People are having a hard time finding the capital improvement plan on the website. I've sent probably 10 copies of it. I can't find them on the
I don't know if
website.
I could either, yeah.
Can we get that on the website or?
The long-term one? No, it's probably not on there.
Mhm.
Maybe that's why people can't
Maybe
find it,
in an
it's
agenda
not
packet
there.
somewhere.
Well, contact me, I'll get it.
Okay.
You know?
So are you, the problem is that everything's changing. As we speak, that long-term capital planning is changing. So we could put it out as of 7/5/2022 draft or something, but, yeah, we just probably want a few disclaimers on it, you know.
I mean, that's the policy we're following right now.
It is, but we'll go to the next
Item and find
Some
that
things
sometimes
have
it's
changed.
strategic to, yeah,
Yeah,
to shift
so.
things around.
So, yeah, like these new numbers that came in, that's changed, streets has changed, so we are hoping to maybe workshop it later or discuss it more today and, could
I'm
republish
not sure
it.
we're talking about the same thing. These streets aren't, you know, mentioned. It talks about the 20% class A, class B, class.
Oh, you mean the assessment, public improvement policy? Okay, yeah.
That, I don't know why it's not online. I think we could get it there.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of requests for it, and I got
Okay.
a copy of it.
I bet.
Send it to everybody.
Awkward.
But it's a very useful document for the residents to see.
That works.
See.
Right.
everything about doing this.
Right.
One thing that kind of keeps bothering me through this whole process is seeing the amount of the price inflation of things going up and the county's amount not being revisited or adjusted or some way. It probably won't be, but maybe now is not the time to address it either, but.
We'll be
one
meeting with the
point I
county
wanted-
tomorrow, so just a portion of the representatives.
I could
Yeah.
have sworn at one point it was $700,000. I don't know where I got that from.
So there was, like, within the agreement, there was two components to it. There was 450 for this project and then the remaining amount was for the second street
Okay,
portion. And
so once we said no to the second street, all right, well, that.
that's my understanding.
And for the public's benefit, I would say if you're gonna come to a meeting, call ahead and see if we're taking action on the item, because there's gonna be a lot of this as we go forward. You know, there'll be updates related to what's learned at the of showing up for city meetings, you know, it may or may not have an actionable item on the streets. Just because it's a streets meeting doesn't mean they're gonna be talking about this project, same for utilities. So
Speaking of
you
that.
can always check with staff.
We have a nice chart out there, I was presenting to the council, I have at home, that shows every item that's being taken, what committee is responsible for, streets,
I've never seen it.
everything, and it has it all. And I don't see that online either. Are you guys familiar with what I'm talking about?
No.
Well, I think I'm the only one that has it.
Did you make it, Dean? Maybe it's on your computer.
You send that around?
Yeah, right? I'd like that for my own reference.
Mine's right out the number.
Yep.
And, I don't know where I got it, but it's working out well.
Send to Caroline. So she can send it.
Yeah.
I will. So,
All right.
And then I just need to reconnect
Oh,
myself.
sure. Well, I'll get us
We're
back to
doing
the
good.
agenda here.
Okay.
So very good. Thank you, Katie. Again,
Thank you.
take off. We understand your time is valuable and we appreciate.
Oh,
all
I
the-
think she needs to be. I feel
Of course, how much you're involved with, Katie. I'm sorry. Very good. So. On this, associates,
Yeah, and there, she's online,
super.
to take up this item.
Okay, very good.
Tess, are you there? Do I need to unmute?
There you go.
Okay,
Nope,
there
I
you go.
can. Oh, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. I will start. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm here tonight just to explain kind of the classification and compensation services that TDA is going to complete. We're going to look at about 18 positions, and our job is to, is that okay?
I think we need it, can someone mute the televisions and then we can hear out of the speaker?
Tessa, we're just gonna switch our audio source and we'll give you
Okay, I
a
just-
thumbs up.
Perfect. I just saw your hand to stop, so.
I had it?
No, it's right.
They're on the podium.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, try again.
Is this better?
Oh.
Well, we
No,
can't
stop.
see you, but I think we can hear you better, which is,
That's okay. I don't look that great, so perfect.
Doesn't matter. Keep going. Yes.
Okay. So we've been hired to do a market analysis, a pay grid calibration, which means taking your current pay grid and calibrating to the council's desired market, where they want to be in relation to the market, and then budget implementation. So looking at where your employees currently are, moving them into the system and that cost. Part of this process, in order for us to begin, is to have the council approve the benchmark communities that we will be using. And generally, when someone asks who should you use, we look at population, tax capacity, who surrounds you, who you could lose employers to, and who you maybe take employers from. What you have before you actually was input by the department heads and staff. So this is who they think they best look like. We also did look at tax capacities, expenditures, and property tax, and they are very similar. There's some slightly above you, some below you, so you're kind of right in there. And then we did suggest using Wabasha County, though not all positions are comparable or apples to apples. You have some that we would definitely want to look at. So the cities that we're proposing tonight are Plainview, Lake City, Caledonia, St. Charles, Ambrota, Chatfield, Pine Island, Lewiston, Goodview, and Wabasha County.
that makes sense.
And I think just looking for input, we could probably add a 10th, or are we missing something, or one of these communities don't make sense at all? The
Yeah.
number of staff that voted on those.
I'm sure you already input this, but like Joe, I was thinking if historically, because of culture, you've lost people to a comparable city that isn't our neighbor. Is there somebody out there that's like, we just lose people to because they are good, that would be my only question for the reason, a reason we might add somebody else.
And the other thing to think about too is we can always spotlight a community. So it may not look like you, so it might not be the same size, but it might be larger, but you lose to because you're right there. And
Sure.
that way we spotlight to see how the trends align, but we don't skew the market data. So for example, Casson uses Rochester to spotlight. We're not skewing their data, but we are monitoring the trend. And what we found is their entry-level positions are right in line, but once they get to mid-management and upper management, it's significantly higher, and it should be because they have very large departments to manage.
Any input on that from council? Do we feel satisfied with who we have here?
I'm good with these two.
I thought it made sense.
Yeah.
Looks good.
If this is all you need from us, Tessie, I don't think we have any concerns.
Perfect. I just need it by proof so that when we have a final report that the council is comfortable with who we chose. So that's not a question. The council will have a choice in the pay philosophy, and that means where they want to be in relationship to the market. And that's a discussion we'll have at a later date. But I want to make sure everyone's in agreement when we go through. And I think it's important that staff had input in this because they know who they look like.
Okay. All right. Does anybody want to make the motion to approve this list? Thank you, Dean. And we have a second from John. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you so much. Thanks for sticking with us.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, and our authorization to bond for the new athletic field, as Caroline anticipated for us.
So this kind of incorporates an updated financial plan. So I think for the public or listeners, let's go back to why we're talking about moving the athletic field, because it is a very big project and we had new information, which was we have another number of plans that identified moving the athletic field to make way for the Highway 60 reroute. And one of the first step was to move the athletic fields. But another thing I would mention is that improving the existing athletic field facilities was in our old 2009 parks plan and kind of an issue that Tony identified. And what's happening is that Tony can't really maintain or improve the facilities there, knowing that they need to be improved. So we're kind of in a, when do we act on moving the athletic field? So we applied and were awarded $300,000 towards this project, and we're currently sitting at 1.9 million. We asked the grantors of the project, could we phase this? They said that that was not allowed because other communities, apparently we weren't very high on the ranking. I don't think, not because our project isn't important, I just think maybe there were other things that the DNR was looking for. So they said, we asked, could we not build the hockey rink? And we were told that if we didn't build the hockey rink, that puts us in a scoring position that someone else would have gotten the grant award. We asked about moving the volleyball courts and phasing that to Gruber Park, and that was accepted. I didn't ask about anything else because the other parts seemed core to the project. The baseball, softball fields, the tennis, pickleball courts, the accessibility improvements. And what was not included in the original project was a warming house facility and restrooms, which staff have expressed concern about that. So I think what we're hoping to do is really fundraise a large amount and put together. So I put some optimistic considerations of our ability to fundraise for the athletic field. So we have 300,000 coming from the grant and 250 to 200,000 in fundraising and a $50,000 contribution from the capital improvement plan. And so then we just did a new revised long-term capital improvement plan. And I don't know if people want to workshop this separately, but what we had to do was we are retiring in 2024 about a $400,000 annual debt payment. So the reason why we can take up new projects is because we're retiring the 2013 debt. So what's changed in here is we were looking to use tax levy to fund the trunk Highway 60 project. We've now reduced that as no tax levy going to the Highway 60 project to be able, because before the athletic field was going to be 100% funded by barge terminal revenue. So what the goal is, and this is optimistic, is we do the athletic field first, move it, and then hopefully continue to pursue efforts to cash flow the barge terminal project, find cost savings and reductions, get bonding, get grant funding. So I had to make some choices. And so that's why I'm bringing you feedback, because I made that choice to make things work and keep our tax levy even. And the downtown PFA project, what you can see here is that we added in the extra streetscaping elements. So before we had 0% of tax levies paying towards the downtown project. Now about 6% is being paid. And we had assumed 10% of the project was being paid by assessments. Now that's reduced to 8%. And this represents the county funding. And then we took out Second Street, but we added we added some funding, about $2 million or 1.8 for various street projects. That Tony will have to kind of review with you, but it's a place marker for street projects that we know are upcoming, that there'll be choices down the line for you to make there. We have the barge terminal project. That's gonna just be paid for by the tipping fees. Now the athletic field, this is where it moves into being paid for by tax levies, where it wasn't before, with some assumptions about grant. And then the water sewer computer, those are underway. Fire and ambulance still has a placeholder about $700,000. That still project is under consideration about what we work on. So again, it's a placeholder for planning purposes, rehab, small amount for trail extensions. And so if you want so Mike used our old assumptions. This isn't 100% updated. If you want a Mike Rubani-esque presentation of this, we can. It's all the same projects, just reconfigured differently. So as you can see, in 2024 is when we are retiring some big debt, and that's kind of, and this has some conservative assumptions in there, just kind of knowing what the economy is doing right now. We have assuming 5% spending, operating spending increase, and 3% tax growth. Those are just negative assumptions. Oh, it's not like that, but I just wanted to give you a worst case scenario. And in the worst case scenario, we don't reach any debt limits, but in 2035, it is, you can see kind of going up a little bit. And that's just due to this assumption that over the next 2 years, our spending is outpacing our tax-based growth revenue, which we're hoping it doesn't. But again, we just wanted to paint a pretty as negative a picture as we could. The other good news is we've added in there the $75,000 that's coming out of the Excel Energy fees that we added. So as before that our CP funding went well into the negative, it remains balanced. And don't look at 20, we're just not that planned out. So we're asking staff to revise their CIP fund requests and looking at it more accurately. So this isn't 100% accurate, but you're reflecting what you're seeing is, again, $150,000 annually coming out of property taxes plus $75,000 to just rebuild that CIP, or at least not make it go into the negative. So as you can see, total debt per capita does get high in 2026, 27, 2028, but we would hope to continue to, these are just estimates looking into the future. So what's changed since we last spoke is that I moved out tax levies out of the trunk Highway 60 so that the athletic project could be realized. The other option would be to turn down the grant and then not proceed with the athletic field. And I don't know what the plan B is, you guys tell me, but Tony and I are hoping to, I think a natural question that's come up is what can we cut from the athletic field project? So this is what was originally presented with this warming house and bathrooms postponed. This is the volleyball fields, which would go, and this is the tennis court and 2 pickleball courts. And this is the hockey rink that in the summer would be a skateboard park and basketball court. And this is what they said couldn't be removed from the project. And I think what it was is showing that you have year-round use of the facility.
Sure.
If you take out the hockey rink, you don't have a winter activity. I asked, could we just sub it with just ice skating? That didn't count for some reason. Tony, yes.
That's kind of going back to the warming house and the restrooms. Okay, so if we didn't have a hockey rink, you don't have to worry about heated restrooms
Facilities.
and warming house. We just winterize it, have something small. Well, to keep the grant, we have to get the hockey because it's a year-round sport, and then we have to have a warming house, heated building, and so forth. So that came in at, the estimate was like $250,000. And of course, I'm like, well, let's build a small pole shed, insulate it, whatever. And we ain't gonna know that stuff until we get into it further. So, I mean, the total grand scheme of things, you know, it's $2 million, but we cut out a few things, got down to 1.1. And with working with the grant people, that's what they would allow us to cut out, but yet there's still some things that we're gonna have to put
Are you talking about enclosed?
back in. No,
Oh,
no.
because you said it was like a year round.
Well, they want year-round
I'm sorry.
opportunity.
A shared sport, you
Yeah,
know,
right.
basketball, skate park.
If we take out the hockey aspect, it's essentially it's a summer facility, yeah. So the DNR I'm sure has a scoring criteria for that. That says
So
no.
here's in the red, this is what some other ideas were. I think we can shrink the fields. We definitely talked about that. That can stay. But then we talked about, what about a smaller hockey rink? We'll still have to figure out now the skateboard element. But then you would only have 3-on-3. And some of the feedback was, right now, we don't believe, and we had a discussion on this, and looking at Darren, because he was a hockey player.
He's just shaking his head at
He
everything.
has never seen anyone play hockey. But we have heard from Katie that other communities that just did the 3-on-3 later come to regret it. So I think what's tricky is you're trying to plan for the next 50 years and not knowing what youth are going to be interested in. So that's another option that we could kick to the steering committee to say, to discuss further, what about a smaller hockey rink? And then we still though have to somehow incorporate some other elements and make sure it gets approved by the grant, but
So
yeah.
with a smaller hockey rink, like we will be using basketball, it would have a hard surface, we could use it for basketball, you could use it for roller hockey in the summer, there could just be some other use in the summer of that hockey.
So it kind of needs to be the standard rink size. You're
Well,
gonna
that-
do basketball court, you're gonna do like skate park in there or whatever, I mean, it's not gonna not fit otherwise.
If you go with a smaller hockey rink, you would not be able to do the skate park, and they were okay with removing that piece from the mobile ramps.
Got it.
We do like
Which we
a
have.
half court basketball and right, something.
I think we'd want to confirm that. I was confused when I reread it back to you, but
I did talk to Chad too, he's involved, well, Chad Springer with the baseball or summer league and stuff. And he said that we can possibly get by with 2 little league fields, one for baseball, one for softball. So I mean, there's things on there to flush out too, so might open up a little bit of room. The volleyball courts, I mean, that's just a matter of my guys, we put the poles in, cement them in, move the sand, not a big over, yeah, that's done, yeah. And there's plenty of parking up at River Park.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing we discussed cutting was lighting, but then there's concerns about minimizing the lighting. But yeah, this is kind of what the budget looks like right
I
now.
want to say that, but
Yeah.
looking at that map up there, I see we had sidewalk and paths and stuff. Is there any way to or not doodle and doodle sometime in the future? I mean, you know, I can't believe I'm saying this, but
I feel like they look pretty minimal, don't you, for just basic access? I think DNR would frown on that, if not, they take our money away.
I'm just trying to look at the whole picture.
Right.
And-
But I am all for, because I go to plenty of softball fields and baseball fields, I am all for a very thrifty mindset with regards to structures. I mean, you know, you're absolutely right on with the pole barn thing. I think, you know, you get a couple local contractors who have kids in athletics to start thinking about how they would build this, and they will not build an octagon. So the element of, you know, shrinking anything, I mean, is there any other, to Dean's point, is there any other hard surface that can be either different material or, yeah, that's not critical for access? Not really,
I'm
right?
just looking at the,
we didn't want to
Thank
put a
you.
bunch of work into this and then that.
Right. I think you did the work you can before you get the steering group together. Yeah.
We're, if it's either do it or not do it, I'd rather, you know, maybe go with that, without asphalt for 5 years.
yeah, I'm just,
I
I mean,
agree.
again, just, I always go back to the budget, you know, part of it is we're fitting a lot of facilities in here, and I've seen that the sidewalk is 37,500 now every bit.
Yeah. Well,
I asked, you know, could we,
I don't know if we can not do that.
yeah,
It's part of the grant.
I don't think we can, but
Corn, we don't need that.
Well, I really do think there's an element here of when the public gets involved, they get involved and they get involved with their money, they get involved with their time, they get involved with their materials, their equipment, so their expertise. I'm
And
thinking,
anything that involves children, which this does. Just look at it with the library.
Right.
You know, and that $220,000 fundraising, is that $50,000 that we already got, is that included in this? Okay.
Well, when we started off on this whole thing, there was a safety element. So when we were looking at, should we run 60 through the park, through the old athletic field? One of the thoughts was, well, we've had a problem. We've had cars, even trucks, going through that stop sign and going into that fence down there, and the bleachers are right there. So there is a safety element. That is one of the things that propelled it to move to this area over here. This area over here is also where we have the swimming pool, so it's kind of, it seems to work well with the city that we'd have all of our activities in this kind of area. That would be a cost savings, I think. And we also talked about when we were planning some of those things in the old athletic field, it wasn't always going to be, there was going to be some commercial, there was talk about some housing, but there was still some talk about putting the volleyball courts, keeping them down there, because they don't take up that much room. So, you know, we could still save some room in the athletic field for something like volleyball or whatever. They don't have to be up in this area here. We're getting pitched for room.
yeah,
But
I think you've got the right things in there, for sure.
Keep in mind that, yeah, we don't want to wait for some 53-foot, 18-wheeler to come crashing through the fence and into the bleachers when people are on. Let's keep moving with the athletic fields here. Let's get them out of the athletic field out of the way. And so,
And I think, Tony, you pointed out the hockey rink itself is in poor condition. I remember you took me on a tour. That's the first thing Tony showed me is just this hockey rink is not sustainable.
Down there in the back.
Yeah.
Got more leaks than Niagara Falls.
Yeah, and then, you know, we have the bathrooms down there, we have the concessions, but water comes up and it floods it, and then we have to call out. It smells like mildew, and it just, I don't know, it's just not a pleasant place.
My perspective is it's long overdue, it's long planned, and now we have a $300,000 grant to work with. So congratulations. And I would hate to see us lose that opportunity because I don't think it'll come again. It's, you know, for whatever reason, if we aren't scoring high, it's the nature of things. And I think that we're fortunate to have gotten it. So we should try to work with it.
The last time it was used, I think it was for Malone Park, like 1987.
Okay.
So last time, and we've applied for it 5
Since
years
then?
for different things.
Yeah.
Well, part of it, we got it is because of our leverage, the amount we're contributing
Yes.
towards the project. But even with the few cuts, we'll still be
Good.
really, you know, multiplying their investment. So
So you need us to say, keep going?
do you want a council workshop to delve into, I think Mike Bubani said, I want to update some numbers and walk you through the capital improvement plan. Are there concerns with, at least for now, setting aside tax levies paying for the Highway 60 project while we pursue grants and other opportunities? Okay.
So what's the worst case here? We move to authorize you to go ahead and sign the grant agreement.
Mhm.
And we meet with Bubani and we can reconsider this when we realize that it's not gonna happen. Nothing. They take their money back, right? We lose our opportunity.
Yeah, I hate to sign a grant agreement, but I think we won't be expected to sign it till August, maybe? Or-
Yeah, because
We got time.
Yeah, so we will try to, if people are open to a workshop in July, I'll see how soon Mike can meet with everybody and.
once we sign the contract, from what I got, that we're legally bound to do it.
Okay.
So, yeah, it would, it's gonna cost money, I realize that, but I think there's a lot of people that are for it more than what we think, but.
Oh, yeah.
If we turn down even $300,000, the grant people are gonna look at us.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean, and I don't wanna spend that much money any more than anybody else does.
I guess my point was is that, I I didn't realize we had time to sign. It is part of a much larger project. Yeah, and this is a key part of that. We've been funded some money for, and we've already got the land bought and paid for. So I mean, this isn't like this is a,
No, it's
a
a
new
good,
idea. This is.
it's good progress.
It's a good idea.
Is there any way to add for the 60 project, some of this money in there? I mean, it seems like MinDOT should be paying something for us to move these fields. It's their project.
They
I'm
did,
not saying they should fund the whole thing.
right,
but
they did speak
the road
that with
going
Ken
right
Robbins, which
through-
actually we don't have a current update from them. Last,
We don't.
they committed, they were going to do
I mean, I don't think we
physical
need to play for
survey.
the whole thing. We
Right.
are moving stuff from our location to accommodate their reroute.
Right.
The only thing that they would commit to us would be turn back money for Highway 60. We'd have to pay for this, we'd have to pay for the new road through the ball field, and then they give us 1.6.
It was not much.
It wasn't
It was
that
not
much.
much, yeah.
But then we gotta reconsider, we gotta take care of all the way to Highway 60 now, or.
Oh, I agree, but I mean,
So that's like
it's-
the money that we get.
Well, we went and talked to Mark Schoenfelder, the district engineer over there, he said it's a small cities thing. So that comes about every year. So all we have to do is get in line to get that.
Right.
So we could use some of that money either to fund the 60 project and divert 60 project money over to this, or vice versa, however it works. But there is other pots of money out there.
And that we can discuss as we go, but for this action item, I think I hear consensus that we think this is a good step in the right direction. I was excited, very excited when I heard the notice, so now we just have to act on our plans. All
So,
right, so you want to get a
so I think
date for
the
a
next
workshop?
step was the steering committee wanted to meet, so I think we should proceed with the athletic field steering committee meeting, and we're hoping that they be a fundraising group. Would anyone like to help fundraise?
I think we've got
Just on it.
6 or 7 people.
Yeah, okay. So I think the next
Council,
step
I think we
is
be a
that
little
we
careful. I
we
think
should
when-
proceed as if this will be approved, but then authorized to do a workshop to further,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Great. And then we moved the, anything further on that item? We moved item, consent agenda item 8.1, the WNB brokered CD to general business. Do you want to
Yeah.
ask
so-
that question? You
So I
both-
saw the thing about the brokered CDs, and I have to confess, I didn't know what a brokered CD is, it probably still don't. So I asked Tyler if he would come and just talk to us a little bit about what's planning. I think in the past, we used to have our city monies stuck in an ordinary savings account and then we finally got it moved into money market accounts, which are a teensy bit better than its ordinary
Not much
savings account.
more.
But, you know, we have a lot of money, we need to try and capitalize on it and use it as wisely as possible.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry.
thinking about because at the end of June, we had $425,000 worth of general city CDs maturing or mature, all of them for utilities. So at that time, Caroline and I thought it would be a good idea, as well as WMB staff, to look in to see how we could get better interest rates on those funds. And we spoke to Chris Fournier, who's the Vice President Financial Advisor to WNB out of the Altoona, Wisconsin office. He advised us on brokered CDs, which basically are CDs, instead of being held by WNB locally, they're outsourced to bigger, larger banks throughout the country. So those bigger banks are able to get better interest rates because they're more on top of the market, more current than the local banks, which are usually a little bit behind. So basically our plan is to meet with Chris and go with a tiered approach to invest this money. Meaning we do some CDs at like 6 months, then 1 year, some at 2 years, just to stagger that they're not all coming mature at the same time. And then as our other CDs come mature, we'll also meet with them to see what the current rates are, what our cash flow looks like, and reinvest those as possible. So basically just taking the CDs we have now, which are held here in town at WMB, going with the brokered approach, opening up to the larger market for better interest rates.
You want to tell them what we're currently at with most of our CDs?
Yeah, right now we're very low interest rates, like 0.5% or even less than that. And when we got with Chris last week, we could get up to, these are subject to change, obviously, but 6 months was up to 2.1%, 1 year 2.9, 3 year 3.25, so considerably more than what we're getting now, even with shorter terms.
Great.
The other thing we discussed is we would save money if instead of like what we've been doing now is what we're getting on the 0.9, 0.5% is applying that to our revenue area of the budget, but we might save time and money if we just apply our interest back into our own savings and kind of keep it in that account versus paying ourselves back. So I guess that would be something else we're looking for feedback for. We thought, you know, transferring over the money to spend next year, why not just make it build on its own?
Yeah, however, they can
accrual.
help you with less administrative fee and, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other question I had is, this is through WNB. So we're still supporting our local bank. It's just, it is going out. It is not necessarily housed here. It is going out into the national market, which is why we thought this would be a good agenda item, because it is, you know, Goldman Sachs and, you know, those big banks, but they're offering a better interest rate.
Yeah, we have to, it's the public's money, we have to use it wisely.
Sounds like a good plan. So that didn't have any action associated with it, but it was on our consent agenda. Do you need it to be approved?
Yeah, we do it.
Yeah, okay, so we'd have would entertain a motion to approve this strategy. That was a first from Dean and a second from Jeff. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Darren had an update that he didn't get to make. Did you want to make?
Darren, on your tanker, we
Well,
skipped firefighters. I thought you had an update.
Oh, it just put you on the spot. I'm really sorry. It's late.
I'll just kind of, yeah, so, we got a couple new firefighters coming on, well, we're gonna put them on tomorrow night. I've heard council approval tonight, of course, the consent agenda, so, we have Alan Fox coming on, he's a St. Charles firefighter that moved here recently. These guys are both trained, and then, Christopher Richardson, he's a St. Paul firefighter now, and he's like 4 days on, 3 off, 7 on, 7 off, and those, but on his downtime, the time he's home, he's in Wabasha, and gave him some interest in the fire department, so kind of happy to bring them 2 guys on, no training, so that's even better yet, but, so they can start right away.
Great.
And that should be our roster of 28. So with that, we're looking at just something we're gonna put into the capital improvement plan and talk about a little bit as we need to start looking at tanker replacement for our 1995 tanker. That truck was bought in 95 with the plans for it to be a 5-year truck. So we bought the
Oldest one you could find?
rock bottom truck, but anyways, it's gone along 25 years with us, but we're starting to put a lot of money into it, and I can say over the last 5 years, it's been around $20,000 mark.
Thank you.
So it's one of the things we're gonna start kind of going up. Everything we do now, it's a year and a half out on a bill, or even a potential bill. A tanker's not it's spendy, but it's not one of our expenditures that are really high up there. So just something we're gonna start doing
And it is captured in the numbers you saw today, but that was a guest cost, so, yeah.
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 So other than that, I guess that's about all I got.
Darren, is 28 a full complement? Or are we?
Yeah, we usually try to run around 28 to 30.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good.
How do you guys recruit? Is word of mouth or?
Yeah. We do have we did do a 2-year list where we did a tryouts, and then we had a roster of 2 years, but the rosters kind of go away, 'cause you no longer have a roster. Now you take a look at people that are interested in it, that move in town, that might want to take the firefighter 1 and 2, because right now you're talking $200-300 of training. It's got so extent that somebody coming on and wanting to take it from the beginning all the way up to where they're the firefighter 1 and 2 and hazmat certified, it just becomes, it's a big commitment to do.
So basically, if somebody wants to be a fireman, they just coach you.
Yeah, coach me. We've had some that, Austin works for the city. He showed some interest in it, so it's like we're setting them up with some potential classes and some stuff where you can do some stuff online. There's they do work with a lot of people that they don't expect you to go out and spend, 3 days a week at classes anymore. They do a lot of it hybrid, so you can do some stuff online and just gotta get house burns in, et cetera. But, yeah. So we kind of just go that route. And we're fortunate enough, we're one of the departments around the area that doesn't have a problem with recruitment. So knock on wood here, but, we've been holding pretty good. So we're gonna stay at 28 for a while. If somebody else decides to want to do it, or we get somebody who moves to the area, yeah, I go up to 30, no problem, or 32, but, right now our department's doing well. 4th of July weekend, we had 4 runs and we had a crew of 15 plus every time. So, I mean, it was phenomenal for the guys to step up this weekend and this busy weekend, and
So you got turnout here for these guys, you gotta get that, or?
we're gonna fit it tomorrow night.
There you go.
So I got everything lined up for them guys to come down tomorrow night with their meeting, and we'll fit them with gear, and so 6 to 8 weeks they should have gear, and go from there.
Great, great,
So,
good.
all right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have the donations, including an addition of $100 for the fireworks from the Old Triangle Pub. And I didn't ask in advance for anybody to read these, so I'll do it myself. So to the library, by Linda Tenney in memory of, all of these are to the library, $25 by Fred and Diane Schulberg in memory of Marcella, and $20 by Linda Bramer, also in memory of Marcella, $25 by Fred and Diane Schulberg in memory of Dick Scherhammer, $25 by Fred and Diane Schulberg in memory of Clarence Evers, $300 for the Community Reads Grant, or from the Community Reads Grant, excuse me, $100 by Kathy Garrity for summer readings. And for the fireworks, in addition to the one I mentioned from Old Triangle, $250 from Hills Hardware, $25 from Ron and Linda Stamsher, $500 from the Kellogg Fire Department Relief Association, $300 from the Wabasha Warehouse Liquors, $100 from Guilford Mutual Insurance, and $250 from Quick Trip. Do we have a motion to approve the very generous donations? We got a first from Dean and a second from Craig. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. And do we have any announcements, or we can entertain a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We got a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Everybody.